Hello and welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day. Today I'm going to do a cartridge review on the 7mm-08. So the 7mm-08 is just a neck down version of the 308. Simply necked it down to 7mm. So commercially, Remington did this in 1980. It was semi-spec'd and standardized. It had been a wildcat for a couple decades prior to that. But Remington commercially did it in 1980, and it's been a very popular round ever since. So before I get too far into the 7mm-08, I want to talk about another cartridge that it's compared to quite a bit, and that's the 7x57, or also known as the 7mm Mauser. Now the 7mm Mauser is much older. It's one of the OGs. It came out in 1892. It was developed by Peter Paul Mauser. He took the original 8mm government round that was created in Germany, tweaked it just a little bit, necked it down to 7mm, and came out with his 7mm Mauser, which he put in his Mauser rifles that he created in the 1890s. Of course, in the Spanish-American War, Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders, with their 30-40 Kriegs in the trapdoor Springfield, went up against some of these Spanish Mausers. Chambered in 7mm Mauser, and they did not have a good time. They kind of got defeated. They won the battle, of course, but they lost a lot more men than what the Spanish did, and so that's what began the creation of the 1903 Springfield rifle that was built for the American government and the American Army. And also the 30-06 cartridge. The 30-06 is just a lengthened version of the 7mm Mauser. Lengthened, of course, necked up to 30 caliber. So the Mauser rifles and the Mauser cartridge was very popular and inspired America to create the 30-06 Springfield. So it's one of the OGs, been around a long time. It's in Africa. It was a very famous hunting round. So a hunter by the name of Karamojo Bell, famously or infamously, however you want to look at it, killed over 1,000 elephants with that particular cartridge. Now, today when we think of dangerous game cartridges, especially when you're talking about Africa, you're not going to think about the 7x57 Mauser. You're going to think of like a 375 Holland and Holland and on up, right? But back then, Mr. Bell was using that particular cartridge. He had a full metal jacket, and of course he made an accurate brain shot and took him down. He was an ivory hunter. So in the right circumstances with the right bullets, it can obviously take down anything in the world if it can take down elephants. But we don't hunt with full metal jackets today. It's not ethical. If you don't make a perfect brain shot, for instance, you're probably just going to pierce the bullet straight through and it's not going to have a blood trail. So we've kind of got away from that today, which I think is probably a good thing. But that just shows you the history of the cartridge, right? So fast forward to 1980, Remington develops the 7mm-08 once again by just necking down a 308. It's basically the ballistic twin of the 7x57 Mauser. Now there is a little bit of a difference between the two. The 7x57 Mauser is longer. It has a cartridge overall length of 3.065 inches compared to 2.8 inches for the 7mm-08. If you're using a 140 grain bullet, the case capacity, this would be water capacity, of the 7 Mauser is 52.5 grains compared to 48.6 grains in the 7mm-08. And then the max SAMI pressure would be 51,000 in the 7x57 and 61,000 in the 7mm-08. So the 7mm-08 basically is the ballistic twin of the 7mm Mauser, but in a shorter, more efficient package with a higher pressure rating. Now it must be noted that if you're a hand loader or have a custom gun and you understand this, you can get that pressure rating on the 7 Mauser up just as high as the 7/08. The reason that the pressure rating is so low is because the cartridge is so old that you could potentially have a 100-year-old rifle, and the metallurgy back then is not as strong. Rifles were not built as strong as they are today. Therefore, a modern loading, if you were to chamber that and shoot it, could blow up your rifle. It could be unsafe to shoot. So usually with any old cartridge, even if they're still shot today, their SAMI pressure ratings are going to be lower. So just keep that in mind. In 2 custom guns, everything being equal, with modern metallurgy and guns and components and cartridges and all that, the 7x57 might probably just barely surpass the 7mm-08 if you loaded it to its potential. But for all intents and purposes, in our modern day, especially if you're buying a factory rifle, they're ballistic twins. So the range of bullets in 7mm is one of its points that makes it an awesome caliber. Very similar to the 30 caliber, it has a versatile, wide range of bullet weights. So from 100 grain up to 195 grain bullet weights is what a 7mm can actually shoot. However, when you're talking about those extreme heavy bullet weights, of course, the twist rate has to match it. So, you're going to have a really fast twist rate to shoot anything over 175 grains. And most of your 7mm-08s are going to come in a 1 in 9.5 inch twist rate. And that should be plenty good for like 168 on down. Maybe 175, maybe not. If you have something like a Ruger American, and there's a few other chamberings that manufacturers have come out with recently that have a 1 in 8.5 twist, I would say that would be definitely good up to 180. Anything beyond 180 grains for a 7mm-08 is really just not ideal. Because of the case capacity and the overall length of the cartridge, anything beyond 180 is going to have to be seated into the case so deep it's going to take away case capacity, and you're going to lose so much velocity it's not going to be worth it. The common factory loadings for a 7mm-08 are between 120 and 150 grains. You can get like a Sierra Varminter in a 100 grain bullet, and I would say anywhere in the 160s is definitely doable. So I know Berger makes a 168 grain Berger's VLD. Hornady makes their 162 grain ELDX. If you were to attempt long-range hunting, those might be a viable option for you. But of course, we're not talking extreme long-range hunting. Anything past 400 yards might be a tough sell for a 7mm-08. So if you've watched my channel for very long at all, then you know I'm a big fan of the 7mm-08. When I first started my channel, I did what I called the best all-around rifle cartridge. And the parameters was basically I want to be able to varmint hunt coyotes all the way up to elk. And I also want to be able to have a cartridge that's capable and easily shootable at 1,000 yards. And it needs to have an efficient design. And I started with the big list and I narrowed it all the way down, and the winner was the 7mm-08. And I honestly did not know what the winner was going to be when I started. Even down to the last video that I made, I wasn't sure, but when I really thought it through, it just seemed to be the obvious choice. So I consider it the best all-around rifle cartridge that you could have. It might not be the perfect one. Definitely it's not going to be the best at any one particular thing. I kind of think of it as a jack of all trades. But like I said, if you wanted to use it for varmints, 100 grain Sierra Varminter, it would do just fine. It's going to have the velocities, getting up there, 33, 3400. You could also use 120 grain, it would be just fine. Your more common loadings, 140, 150 would be great for just whitetail deer hunting. If you did want to get out there and shoot long range, or have a bullet for 300 to 400 yard hunting range, those 160 grain bullets are going to be ideal. They're basically going to have a really high BC, like what a 6.5 caliber would have in 140 grain or 140 class bullets. and you can easily do it. I think a 7mm-08 would be a great mountain rifle. You could get a more powerful mountain rifle if you wanted to, but it's definitely packable. So anything in the 308 family, like 243, 260, 7mm-08 or 308, it works just fine in a 22-inch barrel. Like the whole point of a 308 case is efficiency, right? We're gonna do more with less. You understand you're not gonna match, the performance of a 30-06 or a 7 mag or something like that, but you're gonna get close to it, not quite there, using a lot less powder. So when you already know you're going for an efficient cartridge, you're not trying to, win the horse race. You're okay with a 22-inch barrel. And a 7mm-08 in a 22-inch barrel is a really nice combination, and you're really going to get a lot out of it. And of course, when you have a short action with a shorter barrel, it makes your gun overall shorter and lighter. And it's just a great packable weapon. It's a good weapon to hike with, And so I think it would be a great mountain rifle. Once again, if you're going to end up having extremely long hunting shots, you could do better, I would think. But it is capable. So I mentioned I think it would be great, from coyotes to elk. I wouldn't recommend it for moose. I'm sure many moose have been killed with one, but I would not recommend it. I don't think it's ideal for that or powerful enough. Definitely would not recommend it for a brown bear, a grizzly bear, any kind of dangerous game in the world, even though obviously many elephant was killed with one. But that was in the hands of a professional, skilled hunter who, knew exactly what he was doing. But I would not recommend it, obviously, for any dangerous game. But any other kind of game, pretty much in the whole world, whether you're talking about African plains game, it might be a little bit of a stretch for an eland, possibly a little bit of a stretch for a zebra or a wildebeest, but for pretty much all your plains game and for pretty much all North American game, except for a moose, I think it would be a fantastic choice. Would it be the best? No. Remember, it's the jack of all trades, master of none cartridge. So how does it compare to the 7 mag? So say you're looking into buying one and you've heard about the 7mm-08. You've also heard about the 7 Rem Mag. So the 7 Rem Mag is just that. It's a Magnum, okay? So it's like a 7mm-08 on steroids. A much bigger case holding a lot more powder. Therefore, it's going to have, with the same the same weight bullet, it's going to have much more velocity coming out of the muzzle. Therefore, much more energy, and it'll be flatter shooting. So, it would definitely be a more powerful option for hunting, especially longer range hunting. But you also, the trade-off is more recoil and less efficiency. So a 7mm-08 is going to be about 10% less on the potential velocity. So, if you compare the two with same weight bullets, your 7 mag is going to have probably 200 or 300 feet per second more velocity, which is about 10% more velocity. But to get that 10% more velocity, you're going to end up with close to 40% more powder being used. So if you just want to hunt and you don't care about the extra recoil that 40% more powder is going to bring, then a 7 mag might be better. Like I said, if you want a more efficient version and you want to use less powder, have less kick, then the 7mm-08 is a really cool option. How does it compare to a 6.5 Creedmoor? That's another popular caliber or cartridge. So if you shot the same bullet, if you shot a 140 grain bullet out of both, because of the diameter of the bullet versus its weight, the 6.5 will have higher BC, so it might be better in that particular bullet weight at long range. But your 7mm-08 is just going to be faster, quite a bit faster, and have more energy because of that. Now, if you were to compare equal ballistic coefficient bullets, say like 168 7mm bullet versus 143 6.5mm bullet, if you were to compare that, You know, the BC is the same. You're just going to have more energy, probably similar velocity out of the 7mm 08, but slightly more recoil. So you want a little bit more power, then go with the 7mm 08. If you want just a little bit less recoil, go with the 6.5 Creedmoor. If I had to pick, I would definitely pick a 7mm 08. I think it's definitely more versatile. The 7mm bullet is way more versatile than the 6.5. And I just think it's a better hunting cartridge overall. And it's definitely capable at 1,000 yards. Now, if you're watching this video thinking you want to competitively shoot at long ranges with the 7mm 08, then you might want to rethink it. Not that it can't do it, it definitely can. It's definitely capable, and you could have great success, but probably not just getting a 22-inch factory rifle off the shelf. You're probably going to have to do some custom work to it, and you're going to have to hand load. You're probably going to want a longer than 22-inch barrel, maybe a 26-inch barrel at least. And really, you're going to want to get up into that 175, 180 grain class bullet. And in that case, you might have to have a custom barrel with a fast enough twist rate, but you also might have to think about how far you're going to have to seat that bullet out in order to still get enough powder capacity to get the velocity that you're looking for. So, you know, if you had a gunsmith build you a custom barrel and chamber a custom barrel and have a long enough throat in there and chamber area where you could seat out a long bullet, you know, with the fast twist rate and all that, it would be definitely doable. In fact, it might be an awesome one. You could win, but just be aware that you're not going to go get a factory rifle in a 22-inch barrel with a 1 in 9.5 twist rate and probably win any competition. So it's not the ideal competition cartridge at long ranges in the rifles that you can buy off the shelf, but it's definitely capable, and it's definitely a good long range round as well. So I have a few rifles, but if I didn't have any and I just wanted to have one for the rest of my life, because of what I've already explained, I would pick a 7mm 08, especially if you hand load. You have a lot of versatility in any application that you chose to use it for, you could have success within the limitations that I mentioned earlier. So I'm a big fan of the 7mm 08. I'd love to hear what you think about it. If you have one, what's your experience with it? If you like it, please explain why. If you don't like it, I would love to know why as well. I hope you have a great day, and until next time, take care.